So how? I think that's the ultimate question, is how. And I started at the top of the show talking about how there is no more, it's not the Trump administration's fault because they weren't in power, but over the last 40 years, over the last 60 years actually, since the JFK assassination, like entire wings of the superstructure facade of the federal government's credibility have been demolished. And through the assassinations, through multiple lies, Iraq War I, Iraq War II, weapons of mass destruction, COVID, now the building has been demolished into the earth. And there is no more credibility for the federal government. And so you have to show your work and you have to explain. You know, there's going to be no more people. There's going to be no more people that are like going to just say straight up believe you just because you're the federal government. And so that like, I guess that would be my simple warning. And we found that out during the Epstein saga, is like the shut up, move along. Yep. That doesn't work anymore, right? Like shut up, stop asking questions, move along. No. That will backfire worse than it's ever backfired, because the last shreds of credibility have been bulldozed into the ground. And so you have to build back up, and you have to do that by telling people the truth and explaining your moves, honestly. So that's my question, is how? How is this going to be different?
Well, the outcome could be different. The messaging and everything I agree with. The thing that I've noticed is that the neocons think it's 2003, and you can just say, oh, Benny Johnson, you oppose this, you're a coward. That's what they did. The National Review expelled every war skeptic, and they even called everybody cowards. But it's been 20 years. Everybody under 50, they all could have gone, and they didn't want to go. So that, of course, is right, and that's why they're flailing around. Now, me speaking for myself and the way I view the situation, the way it could be different, is think about it like this. Spiritually or, energetically, we have never in our lifetimes seen a war executed in a manner of the right-wing masculine. We always got this hodgepodge of compassionate conservative, coalition of the willing, or we had the toxic feminine, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton allowing Benghazi to happen, right? Yesterday, a bunch of Pakistani lunatics tried to invade the embassy, and what happened? What happened? They just got shot. They, boom, 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 boom. And then, yeah, and yeah, yeah. And the toxic feminine on my timeline, the Twitter, is, this is so bad. And we're all saying, no, we're not living in, and by toxic feminine, I don't mean feminine is toxic. I mean the version of that, the smothering mother, the boss you have who'll give you an instruction and then an hour later tell you it's a different thing. And why are you working on that project? And you go, well, you told me to work on this project. And well, you wouldn't need to work on this, something, other thing now. And you're going, where do I stand? You don't know where you stand, right? So the loving feminine, the embracing feminine, of course, is a loving mother. It's Mary. The toxic feminine doesn't mean feminine is toxic. It's a toxic form of the energy, just like toxic masculinity can be too callous and toxic, right? So we've never had, I'll be right out, guys. So we never had a situation where we're just going to say, Mullah 1, you're up. Are you going to do what we say? No. Boom. Mullah 2, you're up. Are you going to do it? No. Boom. Mullah 5, can you and your 5 friends run the government? Yes, sir. We're willing to do it. Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're not going to murder your citizens in the street. You're not going to keep doing the nuclear enrichment. You're not going to keep using proxies to commit terrorism. We know that you can't have democratic elections within the next year. Everybody knows that. The people of Iran do not expect elections this year. But you're going to run a stable government, and you're going to do it the way that you're supposed to do it, or we're just going to kill you. That's the masculine. The right wing is, here's a line. Remember, Obama would draw these red lines, and then he wouldn't follow them. That's, again, that's not right wing, right? So you just say, Trump even said the people I was going to put to replace Khomeini, we killed them too. We've killed so many. So eventually you will get a coalition that's willing to play ball, and then you regulate them in the way that I think most people respond well to, especially in the Middle East. In the Middle East, there's an expression that says, 1,000 years of tyranny is better than a day of anarchy. Libya is anarchy. The tyranny of Gaddafi was far preferable to the anarchy now of Libya. So in Iran, it's going to, of course, be a different form of government than maybe we're used to, but it isn't going to be the mullahs. They're not going to be murdering people in the streets. And there's a way to pull that off, which is, again, You, you're next man up. You got a problem? Okay, you're gone. You're gone.
Could you very quickly go into the geopolitics of this and what this does to China and what this does to Russia? We talked about earlier in the show how much of the Iranian oil is sold to China. China has, of course, no oil. How much of the Venezuelan oil is sold to China? Trump went and secured that Venezuelan oil before taking out Iran. And this seems to be preemptive, actually, more on China than it is on any other individual nation. I mean, obviously, it's raw against Iran, but this is a structural play to tighten the noose around China effectively. And that seems to be clearly what's going on here with both of these plays in Venezuela and Iran, but I don't pretend to know it all. So, Serna, what's going on geopolitically?
That's my hope too. So I was talking to a first-time Trump voter who is a part Iranian but also American, and he said, "Well, Trump needs to bomb the mullahs." This was weeks back. I've been hearing this for months. And I said, "Well, what would you say to the people who claim that this is just being done for Israel?" This guy is not a Zionist. He's not an anti-Zionist, but this guy's not a Zionist. And he said, "Why does everybody think if it helps Israel, then it's for Israel?" Right? And that helped me shape a lot of my thinking about this. He goes, "Sure, it'll help Israel, but that doesn't mean it's for Israel." And then he went on to talk about the mullahs, the murders, that the 30,000 were true. And I, of course, had heard that before and knew that was true. And then there is the China angle, where China is a geopolitical threat and rival. And the more oil and natural reserves we can contain is in our benefit. Russia, which I think that we should see differently, but if you look at the current map, and I think Trump sees it more realistically the way I do, you would say like as follows. We didn't want to do anything with Iran years ago because China and Russia were seen as more powerful. And there was a risk of World War III. But I think a lot of people don't understand that Russia's invasion of Ukraine has jammed it up. China, they have their own problems back home. Their economy isn't what it is. There's now some claims that their population's not even what it is, and that a lot of things we don't believe about China are true. Or a lot of things that we do believe about China are not true. And this might be the time to strike, because you notice China hasn't done anything. The war game scenario was, if the US does anything with Iran, China's coming in, Russia's coming in, hostilities could break out worldwide. And now we're seeing, no, the tech is just too good. Our American tech is just too good. And anybody like the Venezuela raid, they went in, that was unreal. And we have tech. We just have, people call it the alien technology. We have alien technology, and we can pull things off that we couldn't pull off 20 years ago. And that, again, is why I think this time might be different. And if we can control more natural resources and control more oil, the future is energy. We're behind China on energy. Why not do that, right? Why not do that? That's the way I look at it. And Tucker and I talked a lot about this within the context of Venezuela. And he obviously disagreed with me on Venezuela. But philosophically, I just think that international law is all fake. And if we are able to pull off regime change and make it work, I'm not against regime change on a moral basis, right? Oh, the Pope told me war is bad. That's not why I'm against it. I'm against it because it's always been done badly, and it's led to more human suffering. It's led to Libya, a human rights travesty, and then of course all the migrants. And the fall of Libya is tied to the mass migration of Europe and the Islamization of Europe. That's why I'm against it. But if we could pull off regime change and it would work, why wouldn't we install our vassal? Why wouldn't we be Rome? Why wouldn't we? We're the most moral people in the world. The American people, the American Christian is the most moral people that have ever, not that we're perfect, but has ever walked the face of the earth. Why wouldn't we go in and run it and control the energy and govern people justly? Why wouldn't we do that, right? So the question for me isn't a philosophical one. It's a practical one. And is the politics good on it? Will it work? I don't know. That's a bigger question.